You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Love Talk Live. I'm Jaime Bronstein, and I have with me Dr. Patti Ashley. Welcome.
Hi, Jamie. It's great
How
to
are
be
you
here.
doing today?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day here in Boulder, Colorado. Perfect weather.
Wonderful. And it's beautiful in California, and I hope it's beautiful where everybody is today. We're finally in the weather getting better, in most places, right?
Right. No snow this week anyway.
Yes. Months till snow will come back. So welcome to I think this is the, fifth or sixth time I've been doing this show from home. So, we're just going with the flow, and thank you for joining me this way. And hopefully our viewers will just be understanding of any glitches that happen, but hopefully we'll be all good.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thanks so much.
Okay. So Mother's Day is coming up, and Dr. Patti Ashley is going to be talking about that type of relationship, because on Love Talk Live we talk about all different types of relationships, mostly love relationships, and maybe we'll get into some romantic questions if we have time, or she'll just have to come back and we'll do another whole show on that. So we're going to be talking about that type of relationship, the mother-child relationship. But first I'm going to read to you a little bit about Dr. Patti Ashley. So she is a psychotherapist, author, and international speaker. She brings unique insight to the identification and treatment of trauma, shame, grief, and dysfunctional family patterns. Her signature authenticity architecture model creates long-term changes in the brain and central nervous system, breaking through ingrained barriers to personal freedom and authentic growth, and excavating the truth of self-love, belonging, and connection. See, this is why she needs to come back. That's why you need to come back. With over 35 years of experience, Dr. Ashley has counseled a myriad of individuals, couples, families, and groups in mental health agencies, psychiatric hospitals, and private practice settings. She is also responsible for having developed and taught continuing education courses for physicians, hospital wellness programs, universities, and several private organizations. Patti holds a PhD in psychology from the Union Institute and University. She is the author of Living in the Shadow of the Too Good Mother Archetype, 2014. Letters to Freedom, 2019, and the upcoming Shame-Informed Therapy, the Art and Architecture of Reconstructing the Authentic Self, scheduled for release spring 2020. For more information, please go to pattiashley.com. So obviously you need to come back because you have so much experience doing so many different things in the therapy world.
Yeah, I have a lot of words I could share with you, for sure.
Good. Well, it's a talk show and we love talking. So you'll definitely have to come back. So today we're going to be talking about Mother's Day. My first question for you is a mother's self-sacrifice beneficial or harmful? What do you have to say about that?
Well, in the first few years of life, of course, it's really a lot of sacrifice, right? I mean, you have a newborn infant that's completely dependent on you, and it really is a lot of sacrifice. But as your children grow older, there should be less and less. My teacher and mentor, Dr. Catherine Kersey, used to say that our job as a mother is to work ourselves out of a job. So the tricky piece is, and again, it goes back to all of the other topics you were talking about, the neurobiology of not being good enough. I think, my research in development and parenting and all the areas that I'm super interested in have shown me how we are cleaning up a lot of the old parenting practices. And oftentimes, this whole COVID thing is going to, I think, just rattle everybody's cages a little bit too. But prior to this, we were kind of living in a world where we were trying to make it easy for our kiddos. They were talking about lawnmower parents, smoothing things over. And so I think parents, moms in particularly, sacrificed a lot because they, especially if they're working outside the home and they're doing all the household responsibilities and raising the kids, making sure that the kids have the best education and the best of everything. And it was a lot of sacrifice. And I think that's because we have so much unhealed trauma from the past generations. And again, that's a whole other show, Jamie. But yeah, so I think we've over-sacrificed as moms, and I think we're really learning the balance. And again, like I said, this COVID thing, I think, is turning it all on its head and shaking it up, And I'm interested to see how we integrate it all going forward, because now moms are really sacrificing because they're home and they're homeschooling and working from home, and so there's that sacrifice. There's no meals we can order out, but we can't go out, we can't go to the parks, so lives have changed a lot. But the whole idea of sacrifice goes back thousands and thousands of years of, historically women being in that role and being the overgiving. And so what we really want to do is work ourselves out of a job so that when our kids go to school, we have a sense of self that gives us a lot of fulfillment and isn't all about our kiddos. Otherwise, we'll hold on to them. So told you I had a lot of words. Long answer to your to your question.
No, I love it. Thank you. It was very insightful. So how do you recommend setting up boundaries with your children and at home, especially now?
Right. So that's a big question, because there's a lot of different areas, especially now. Things are so different. My daughter and I are teaming up. We've got a course online that we're going to launch on Mother's Day called Moms in Real Life, Before, During, and After COVID-19.
And how can people find that? Is that on your website?
It is on my website.
drpattyashley.com.
Patty with an I, yeah. So, it's fun because she has two little ones now. They're 7 and 5. Mine are all grown. They're all in their 30s now. It's hard to believe, actually, but it's true. So now I'm a grandma. So it's really fun because she's a school psychologist and a parent educator as well. And so we're teaming up, helping to give moms some of those tools. And so she is going to be giving moms some tools on how to help kids find things to do on their own, so they can play. She also, in one of our videos, made a really good point about connection, because a lot of times when kids are, pulling on us, do this, please, 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 come, they're just crying out for connection. So she was talking about how you find those moments of connection when you can, first thing in the morning, settling in, having breakfast, sharing, that together, and lunchtime and dinner and bedtime, but giving the kids a lot of connection, because we're wired for connection, which is also the other upside downness of this COVID-19 social distancing, because we need connection. It's just biologically what we need. So to find times to connect to the kids and then set the boundaries, it's hard. The boundaries on screen time. Now kids are on screens more, because that's the only way they can do school and connect with their friends. And, so the old boundaries around screen time are, so when you talk about boundaries, I think there's a plethora of boundaries that we need to set. But I think in the another chapter in this course that we're doing is self-care and support systems. How when you fly on an airplane, the flight attendant always says, put on your oxygen mask before you help small children. And, but our motherly instinct is to take care of the kiddos first. So to always take a deep breath and go, oh gosh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need to get my oxygen mask on. I need to refuel. And I was, again, talking to my daughter, how do you do that when you don't have a lot of support systems? If you're lucky to have a partner in the home that can help, but, to try and find the boundaries for the self-care is extra, extra tricky. It was hard before, but it's extra hard now. So again, and when you talk about boundaries, you might want to ask me more specifically, what kind of boundaries, because I think there's so many that we need to set. And right now with the COVID experience, it's also really different and really challenging.
No, I think you answered it perfectly. This has been a discussion. I've been doing other webinars, and this discussion has come up and up and up. I've been doing it specifically for moms, for young moms, with the little kids at home. And yeah, obviously if you have help, it helps. But regardless, we really do need to our tanks need to be filled in order to help the little ones. And, our children are wise beyond their years. I've been saying, you can say to a young child, Mama needs some time, I'm here for you. But like you said, you know, take the time to connect and to hug and to have that time with them so they know that they're loved, and it's not that you don't care about them. But yeah, we are not going to be good mothers if we're not taking care of ourselves first. So I think that what you said was great.
I have a client that I've been working with for years, and so she's really good at her self-care. And so she told me the story that last week she locked herself in her bedroom so she could do yoga, and her 5-year-old daughter tried to pick the lock with a paper clip.
Oh my God.
And it got stuck, and her husband had to take the whole doorknob off. She was like, I was determined I was going to get my yoga done.
There are going to be so many stories.
Right?
I have a client who, she said that she has 4 little ones, and she said that sometimes she'll just say to them, I am a hologram. And she had to tell them what a hologram is. I'm not really here. You know, like your dad's here. I'm a hologram, not really here. So whatever you need to do.
Right.
But obviously let your children know that you love them.
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, I think that's the thing. It's a hard job in general, in best case scenario. And now we've got a lot of extra. We're really stressed before this happened. And so now, again, I keep saying like it's flipped upside down. Now the stress is kind of different, but it's still stress nonetheless.
Yes. But we do have so much to be grateful for as well. You know, like the bonding and the slowing down and the being together is also a huge plus.
It totally is. Yeah.
Okay. So next question. How can mothers begin to mother themselves as well as their children so that they don't lose track of who they are? And we were kind of talking about that, but what else do you recommend, even just beyond this, just in general, besides for this time?
Yeah, well, again, you know, my work has really been about reconstructing the authentic self and helping women find their identity that's kind of hidden, because once we become moms, we get so into that role. And of course we do, because our kids are so dependent on us. It's a really important job. I think it's the most important job, you know, anyone could do. And at the same time, it's also the one that gets kind of lip service to being supported. We don't, you know, America has the worst, you know, family leave and supports for maternal care in the whole world. And so women are really stressed to get back, you know, out into the workforce and get it all done. And so I think it's almost like demystifying. That's what I found in my research. My book is based on my doctoral research on women not feeling good enough. And what I found is that, you know, there was this cultural push to do it all and these unrealistic expectations and everything. And I think that comes from, like I was saying earlier, that the old parenting pedagogies that, you know, are still in our DNA, such as, you know, children should be seen and not heard, beat the devil out of the kid if they're having a temper tantrum, break the will of the child before they're old enough to remember. And so we know now biologically that by the time we're 7 or 8, that's all wired into our bodies, and we totally forget. It's like we're in a hypnotic trance, as Bruce Lipton calls it. So then we grow up and we have kids, and we want to give them something different, but because what our experience is in the unconscious, we don't clearly know what it is. So my job is to help women identify that. So, you know, what is your bliss? What's really calling you, and giving yourself permission to ask those questions? Because oftentimes women stop asking because they're just too busy. They're sacrificing. They've got to take care of everybody else, and their needs become really down the bottom of the list, if they even land on the list.
Yeah.
And so it's giving yourself permission to just pay attention to yourself. Mindfulness practice, you know, at least a few minutes each day, preferably more. But those are just a couple things. Mainly it's giving yourself permission to have a self and to explore what that is, separate from the role of mother, because your children are going to grow up and leave you. I know that all too well. And I did such a good job of working myself out of a job that sometimes it was too good of a job. All my children are amazingly independent and wonderful.
Well, good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying. And there are so many women that they just feel like for some reason their lives aren't important anymore. And everybody's life
Yeah.
is important and special, and we all deserve to make all of our dreams come true no matter what, you know. And so I love that you're working with people with moms to empower them.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
know that their desires, like even though you become a mom, you still have desires and dreams.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just shut down or shut off. And it's a shame when women never do tap into that after they become a mom, and then they live the rest of their lives. And, you know, so I love that you're helping them to reconnect.
Yeah, thanks. So on this learning platform where the Moms in Real Life course is, there's a free course before that. Moms in Real Life is only $49, but I'm also doing scholarships for people if they're having, you know, hardships with the time that we're in. But the free course I've put up and is up and running and ready to go right now is called Go In, Not Out, Deepening Parts of Yourself in the COVID-19 Pandemic. Because I felt like, I know we're starting here, I don't know about California, but we're starting next week or safer at home, where we can start going out a little bit more as opposed to stay at home orders that our governor has.
That's great.
But I still think our lives
starting here, not really.
Yeah, I think our lives are still going to be, we're not going to have camps. We're not going to have a lot of the extracurricular things that kiddos and families got to go to. So I thought this would be a really good time for people to go in and kind of ask these bigger questions, like we were just talking about, like, who am I? You know, what am I? What is my bliss? What am I being called to do? And excavating those parts. So in the course, I talk about the experience of going inward. I talk about the neurobiology, how the not feeling good enough gets wired in our brain and our nervous system, and then how to give ourselves permission to excavate some of these things we may have forgotten, and lots of handouts and tools and techniques. So it's a lot, actually. It's a huge course. So I'm hoping to break it down and do little pieces later. It's kind of like Psych 101. It gives you the overview of pretty much how I work with people with my Authenticity Architect coaching. So, yeah.
Amazing. So sign up, everybody.
Yeah. And, you know, that's what's been really
tell people about it.
Great with this quarantine for me, is because this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I actually got to have the time.
See, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, there are so many sad things that are happening. People are dying. It's horrible. However, there are so many wonderful things that are coming out of this time also for a lot of people.
Right.
Okay. So looks like I was going to ask you about authenticity architecture and how does it relate to mothering, but you kind of went into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what creates so much judgment of mothering practices, and how can mothers better support one another? It's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that question.
Yeah, you know, and my daughter and I were talking about that in our interviews for the course too. And my experience when I was parenting, and I was asking her, I said, we used to call it the mommy wars, you know, parenting in the 80s, because moms were just going back to work then, you know, in the 70s, it was the feminist movement. And so it's interesting with my daughter and I to talk about generationally, you know, what's similar and what's different. And it's a little bit different now. But then back in my day, we called it the mommy wars. And my daughter was saying, yeah, still there's a little bit of that, like women who stay at home and women who work judging each other.
Right.
You know, and
breastfeeding, not breastfeeding.
I know, it goes on. Sleep with your baby. Don't sleep with your baby. You know, and this all goes back to the neurobiology of not being good enough. Because anytime we judge another person, it's just it's a defense against our own not feeling good enough and our own fear that we're not a good enough mom. So if I can look at, you know, Sally over there, and, oh, look what she's doing, then I don't have to look at how I feel about myself, because I don't want to admit that I don't feel like a good enough mom. That's the other thing I learned. Gosh, yeah. I did parent education for a pediatric group when my children were little, back in the 90s when I lived in Virginia. And people would come, I would do consults for the pediatricians with their patients, and then I would do classes based on the questions that the parents were asking. And people would come in to these classes with a sense of shame that they were in a parenting class. Like, my mom wanted to know what's wrong with me. Why do I have to do that? You know, my coworker wants to know if I'm okay. You know, and I think it's gotten better now, but I still think there's this idea that somehow mothers are supposed to be able to figure it all out and it's supposed to look easy. Like it looks like everybody says everybody else can do it, but why can't I? But then I've heard behind closed doors from now thousands and thousands and thousands of moms, what's wrong with me? Everybody else seems to be doing it right. And I said, no, 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 it's not you. Let me tell you, I've heard thousands and thousands of the very same story, but nobody tells it unless they're alone behind a closed door in a safe place. So my work really became this, I have a strong desire for people to have these real conversations. Because, you know, you look at like the movie Bad Moms or, you know, those sorts of comedies that kind of make fun of the idea of how hard mothering is. But then the alcohol is usually the solution, right?
Right.
We'll go in the opposite direction. But how do we support each other rather than judge each other and, you know, good, bad mom thing? Because it's really about the fact that it's really hard to feel good enough in our role as a mother. And again, that's what I discovered in my research, and the work that I've done since is really somatic and experiential, because you can't get it from the neck up. The more books moms would read, the worse they felt. And so that was it for me. So the judgment, it's pretty rampant, right? I mean, if you look at women judging other women and mothers trying to get their kids into the, you know, the best schools, like who were the actresses, Felicity Huffman and,
Yes.
you know, that got arrested because they, you know, paid off the schools to get their kids into the Ivy. So it's this pressure to be this good mom. And if my kids succeed, then I must have done it right. And it needs to stop. In my version, we need to cut it out. You know, we really need to come together and support each other. And maybe, you know, this whole thing of being quarantined and having our lives shook upside down will kind of push us in a different direction. I don't know.
Well, I love that you bring up judgment. I talk about that a lot. And to me, judgment, it prevents us from connecting. You know, it keeps us farther apart. Oh, I'm judging you. And I love that you were saying that, it sounds like you were saying that it's really all a projection of your unresolved issue inside. And because I'm a huge fan also of just being vulnerable and being honest and being authentic. And I love that we are in a time now where this is becoming a thing, where finally we are all just being more real. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about social media and how, yeah, there's a lot of fighting that goes on, but also thank God for it also, because some people are getting really real. And that does help other moms to feel not so alone.
Yeah. 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 Good news, bad news about it, anything, right? You can have the good parts and the hard parts of COVID, and just like social media, but you know, there's all paradox is one thing I talk about in my book. Is, you know, parenting is a huge paradox, which is two opposites that exist together. And so I think that's part of the judgment too, is that we want to make things all good because we haven't really learned about paradox. We haven't really learned, even though it happens every day, the sun rises and sets and we have dark and we have light and we have winter and, well, you don't in California, but we have winter and summer. You know, we have a polarity, duality here. And so of course our emotions are going to be, you know, both and we're going to have experiences of both. And I used to say when my kids were little, they were so cute and I'd watch them play. And then when we'd have a day where I was pulling my hair out because they were fighting with each other, sibling rivalry or something was going on, they weren't listening. And I was like, this is so hard. And then I was like, oh, I bet you it has to be hard, because if it was all that cuteness, how could I let him grow up? Right.
Yeah. Or we wouldn't feel the sense of gratefulness for it, or we wouldn't have the appreciation.
Yeah.
Of it. You have to be sick to appreciate being healthy. You have to,
exactly. And I
yin
think
and yang.
This COVID thing is really going to give people some gratitude, hopefully. Really appreciate it. I know we're talking about, you know, our first meal in a restaurant with friends.
Yeah.
And like, wow, this is amazing.
It's so, I know, like a friend of mine was like, I just want to be served. I want to go to a restaurant and be served. She's like, no, it sounds like horrible. But because she's a mom of 4 and she's just constantly serving. I want someone to serve me.
Yeah, the things that we take for granted that now we're really, you know.
Or like our houses, you know, some people have cleaning ladies and now cleaning people. And now we are all, taking care of our own stuff. You have to think of ways to say who's doing this, who's doing that with the dishes and, which you should do anyway. But,
yeah. And I think so too. My kids used to say to me, Mom, I have to do more than any of my friends. And
good.
They grew up to be pretty responsible adults, I have to say. So, I was like, I was a single mom and they helped. They did chores. They always did chores. My youngest, when he was 7, was when I decided that it was time for the kids to all do their own laundry. And of course, my oldest then was, in her teens, young teens. But my 7-year-old was like, that's not fair. She was like 13 before she had to do her laundry. Why do I have to do mine? I'm like, so I think it's really good to give kids chores. And you're right. The COVID-19, the housekeeper's not coming. And like my daughter said, there are so many dishes when you're cooking, 3 meals a day in a family. I know I'm by myself now and I'm doing dishes every day. It's like, wow.
I keep coming up with these ideas. Like for some reason, my husband uses a lot of glasses throughout the day. And so I was like, cause I like to use paper cups. So it's less dishes. So I was like, I gave him that suggestion. And I also suggested maybe we can, we have a son. So maybe the 3 of us can all use the same set of silverware 3 times a day and just really wash off instead of, it piling up. So we're trying different things. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, life's really different.
I actually I do not mind putting stuff into the dishwasher. I don't know how to take it out and put it away. That's not part of what I do because I do not enjoy it. So no problem putting it in.
Yeah, I used to always do family meetings with my kiddos and we would divide chores, so I had 4 kids. And I love the process of family meetings where the kids get to choose. And so I would ask them, let's make a list of everything that needs to get done, the weekly chores and the daily chores. And we would do it together. And then, well, how are we going to divide it up? And I would let them decide and we would switch it up, it would change. So sometimes they'd say, well, let's put our names in a hat and pull, 4 chores or whatever, or
very fair.
Let's make a chore chart and we'll just check our names. That's what's so great about family meetings is the whole idea is giving kids an opportunity to have a voice and then they feel really empowered. And so it's different from like parents saying, well, this is what you're going to do, kiddo, go clean your room or go do the dishes. Well, why? Because I said so. That's, again, the old school parenting piece.
Absolutely.
But what happened is when parents tried to shift away from the old school authoritarian, they went to the opposite direction and they became too permissive. And kids, as a really well-known pediatrician who passed away a couple of years ago, T. Barry Brazelton, said, it was still just repeating. That was the unconscious repetition of this authoritarian belief system because now the kids are controlling the parents. And so to find that middle ground, that was a big part of my work when I was a parent educator. And it still is a piece of my work as an authenticity coach and my daughter's work as a parent coach. But, to find this middle ground of negotiating needs, I call it heart-centered discipline. People hate the word discipline because they think it means spanking and it's punitive, but it's not.
No, it's important.
Punitive punishment, I am not a big fan of. Discipline means to teach or to train. It comes from the word disciple. So again, how do we as parents become the best role models we can for our kiddos? And that's tricky. If you don't want your kids to cuss, don't cuss. If you don't want your kids to smoke, don't smoke. If you want your kids to do chores, do chores. And I think it's really important to find that middle ground. And kids, again, in these family meetings, when you negotiate chores, and also in family meetings, it's really important to talk about fun things like, what are we going to do? And I think now, especially, I think it's back to the paradox of good and bad, both and with the pandemic is, I'm encouraging people to just lay out the finger paint or go out in the yard with the sprinkler if it's warm like it is there. My son-in-law is amazing. And he did a little camp out in the backyard with the kiddos and put up a tent and they did a little, they camped out in the backyard. It was a great story. And, and then my other my granddaughter on Sundays Zooms, and they have a cooking class with family and friends, and everybody, they each share a recipe and they cook together. So to be creative and find ways to engage the kids, and that's healing too. Back to the neurobiology, we found that play and fun and creativity actually rewires the brain into
and it expands,
into a sense of pleasure and comfort, which is what we need right now when we're feeling so much fear.
Yeah, go from fear to love, fear to faith.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Me too.
Okay, well, thank you so much for doing this today. You're filled with knowledge and wisdom and years of experience, so I really appreciate that, and the viewers are going to love this. So just once again, how can people find you? How can people sign up for your programs?
Pretty much everything.
Buy your book?
Yeah, everything you need to know is on the front page of my website, pattiashley.com, Patti, except for one really exciting, hot off the press thing, Jamie, that you're going to love on this coming Saturday. And they're still working on the final draft of this email that I need to send out to social media. I'm going to be part of 24 world-renowned experts with Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Joan Bornsenko, Michael Beckwith. And what they're doing is they're promoting, Deepak Chopra now is doing the Never Alone movement for suicide prevention. And so there's going to be a panel of people talking about mental health and suicide prevention. And I'm going to be one of those people. And I'm excited to be able to share.
That's wonderful that you're doing that. You're going to help so many people.
And so hopefully that'll be on my website by tomorrow morning, but everything else is on there right now.
Oh, great. So people can tune into that also.
All day Saturday, they're streaming, I think your time, California is 3 to 8, so 4 to 9 here.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and happy early Mother's Day to you and all the mothers that you know.
Thank you. You too, if you're a mother. Are you a mother?
I am. I have a 4.5-year-old little boy.
Oh my gosh, that's the cutest.
Thank you. He's very sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it was great to have you. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and you'll have to come and at some point when you're in LA and do the show in person, and we'll talk about everything else that you have to say, because there's a lot, I know.
There is. That sounds super fun. Thank you so much.
Lots more topics.
It was great. Okay.
Thanks. Have a great night.
You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.